Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering the importance of church on this year, Tuesday morning, Rise and Shine and Give God the Glory. And this morning here, I'm looking at the topic liberal, conservative, capitalist, socialist, the divide. Liberal, conservative, capitalist, socialist, the divide that has always been and will always be. So, welcome again to our live talk program. Hopefully, at a blessed night rest and you're ready to take on the challenges and grab some of the opportunities that come your way this day. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of your word. I thank you for the blessings, dear Lord, of the way that you continue to lead and guide us. I pray, dear Father, that you may be with us as we study and as I share these things. May thy grace be upon us. We pray by thy Spirit for Christ's sake. Amen. So again, we're looking at this topic here, liberal conservative divide, the capitalist socialist divide. So liberal conservative, capitalist socialist, and the left right divide. This is what we're looking at here. I'm going to share one article, which is an opinion piece written by a person called Dr. Paul Kengor, or his name is Paul Kengor, and I want to share that, and I have some Bible text and some thoughts I want to share. And as you're probably well familiar with this idea of a liberal conservative divide, for whatever reason it is, human beings tend to go to the left or to the right, go very liberal, very anything goes, and it can be very emotional for whatever reason, because one should not judge. And then the person can go also conservative, where it's kind of like rules, laws, so forth and so on, and can be very heartless. And then the other thing that we have in our society that are other factors that we're going to be talking about today is things like capitalism, socialism, communism, the various different type of forms of government and so forth. We're not going to go deep into that, but there's something particular I want to share with this left-right divide. And it's a divide that you see in everything, and I think we ought to talk about it a little bit more and observe that they're there. In each of us, we tend to lean one way or the other, and sometimes we lean to the left or to the right, depends on where we're at in our lives. Sometimes when you're younger, you probably lean a little bit liberal, or it could be either way. When life has knocked you about a little bit, you go conservative, you flip, and you could flip back and forth for various different reasons. Because there's these two elements in life that one has to admit. It's there. There's a need for mercy, kindness, but there's also a need for justice. There's a need to be given, but there's a need to also work for what you have. So, it's how to make that balance in your personal life and in the way you do it. So before I get into that text, I want to just set this up a little bit here. And I'm going to read Revelation chapter 18, start out with there, Revelation 18. And I wanted to show you again, and you're very familiar with this, that the state of the church in the last days. I'll take a few verses here, and I'll probably read two pieces out of Revelation. It says in Revelation 18, verse 1 onwards, it says, "And after these things I saw an angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all the nation have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacy. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive none of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquity." So there's a few times in the Bible that we know whatever wickedness is being done, it is referred to as reaching to heaven. And this can be in the liberal or the conservative divide. In the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, the Lord, it says the cry of Sodom came up to the Lord. The amount of wickedness and cruelty and rape and stuff that was going on in Sodom, the Lord heard, and you would say, well, that's a liberal city. So the Lord hear when the wickedness is being done by the liberals. And then you hear, we believe, similar can be applied to when the people shouted out, crucify him, crucify him. These were being pushed on by the conservative, the Pharisees, and heaven heard, and heaven stood to watch the wickedness being taken place. So I brought this out because although there's this left-right divide, evil and wickedness often is at the feet of whatever they're doing. The important thing that we get here from Revelation 18 is that if you're a person that is an outsider looking at religion, and you look at religion and as it's described in these stark terms in Revelation 18, and you see it's described that the religion, because religion is here being put forward because it says it's fallen. It was once standing and it become corrupt, and it becomes a habitation of devil and a hold of every false spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. It would be easy, even especially as a young person trying to formulate where you want to be in life and what do you want to practice, believe, how do you want to live your life. It would be easy for you to look at religion itself and see it as barbaric, cruel, and wicked, and it's a toy or tool for, as it says there, the merchants and the kings are in bed with the religion. And so if you look at it, you say, well, religion is dangerous. And over the years, you've had various different elements or people come along who had power, and they were very suspicious of religious leaders because they saw them as part of the problem. Easily to go through that. So when I read the article, this is part of what I want to put forward to you, because if you're standing aside and you're watching, as I would say for myself, I'm one of those people who stand aside and I'm watching, and I'm looking at what's going on, and I see what religious leaders promote, who they endorse, the type of philosophy they put forward. Then one would make you say, religion is terrible. But when you come to the Bible, and the Bible tells you that there is religion, there's true religion, as in Revelation chapter 12, and then there's false religion, as in Revelation chapter 17, 18, so forth. Then you say, oh, that's what's going on. There's two branches to this. And that's the reality. There's always two branches to this. So if you look at it and you don't understand what you're looking for, you would think the mainline religion is the true religion, and you go ahead and run and follow mainline religion, and all you're getting is a bunch of corruption and wicked people. And you say, man, it seems like this religion and these people is a habitation of devils and a hold of every false spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird, and they're in bed with the kings and the merchants. This seems weird. And this is how I can see how many people over the years have been baffled by religion, because what they think is true religion. Think about it, if you're secular, you're going to think the mainline religion is the true religion. You'll never think that the mainline religion is following the devil. You would think, well, they represent God and they seem barbaric. Well, how do I make my choice? And you're going to see this from the article, and I'm going to point out some things in the article. It's an opinion piece, and you will see as I read this, you could see how easily leaders over the years have been very confused by the action. You think about the Dark Ages was brought on by the Christian church that basically fell. It became perverted, and it went in bed with the kings. And what we brought on was tyranny for over 1,260 years. We think about all the rapes that goes on, all the corruption in government, all the promotion of slavery, the promotion of Jim Crow law, the promotion of the war on drugs, all these things that are done by church members who are in bed with the religion, with the political class and the rulership class and the merchant class. Then you could see if someone looking back and say, man, there's all that evil in religion. But then you have to think about even the freedom of the slaves in America, and remember that it's people like the Quakers, like the Seventh Adventists, like the various different reformers in various different church denominations that fought to free the slaves. So there's these two elements always in the world. There's this element to corrupt it and destroy it. And normally the pagans and the secular people become part of that, but there's people who claim to be Christians that are part of that. And then there's an element to sanctify, to be salt, to be light in the world. And this element is part of the Christian church. So it is this dilemma that one face, and if you're a casual observer, it's easy for you to come away with this conclusion that all evil is coming out of the church, or they endorse it. Like whatever the priest is doing, he's protected by the state, and whatever the state is doing, it's endorsed by the priest. But then you realize that when you read the Bible now, right, there's always this left right, what do you call it, division in the Bible, and there's always this division where, there's the prophets, and they're lowly outside by them little self, and then there's the mainline church in bed with the kings, and they're over on the other side. And except probably for the story of David and Solomon, and even at one point Solomon became a mess. For the most part, when you read the Bible, most of the time that's how the divide go. There's the prophet and the prophets and prophetesses, and they're over one side with their lowly self in the church in the wilderness. And then there's the mainline church with all this glitter and glamour and glory, endorsing wickedness left, right, and center, and practicing all kind of paganism and spiritualism and spiritual formation. And nothing has changed today. It's always been like that. It's always, many people wonder why you only hear certain preaching from outside of the mainline denominations. And it's because that's how it's always been. And so when you get that, you understand how the Bible always works. It's always the church in the wilderness. It's always the Waldensians. It's always the people in the mountains. It's not the main line. And it's a disappointment for many because they believe, oh, I'm part of this mega church. And they don't know, I'm part of Satan's system. So this is where it is. So I'm going to read this article now, because when you read these articles, you're often reading from theologians, and you kind of get a thrust of why intellectually and philosophically they run the church this way, and the church can be easily described in Revelation 18. And I was going to go to a second text, but I'll go to it later because I want to talk about a little bit about the French Revolution. You'll get it here. So this is a few paragraphs here from this article. I'm going to read the whole article, but the article is a few paragraphs. And I take it over from Christian Post, and it is in their Faith and Religion section, and it is entitled, What Lenin Said About Christians and Socialism, Dr. Paul Kengor. Right, so we're reading was originally printed in Crisis magazine, and this is an opinion piece, his opinion. I'm going to read his opinion, and then I'm going to give you how readest thou me, how I read. So notice here it says, if someone call it socialism, Reverend William Barber at the August meeting of the Democratic National Committee, then we must compel them to acknowledge that the Bible must then promote socialism, because Jesus offered free health care to everyone, and he never charged a leper a copay. Barber's statement brought secular progressives to their feet in thunderous applause. That include DNC chair Tom Perez, who says that the Democratic Socialists, like Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, represent the future of our party, that a party once headed by men like John F. Kennedy, who warned of fanaticism and fury and the rootless, godless tyranny of the communist conspiracy. Describing the U.S. Constitution and the Bible as socialist document, the Reverend Barber exhorted the faithful, if you want to have a moral debate, bring it on, baby. A moral debate on socialism and Christianity, Pastor? Sure, let's have it. So he's saying, look, we're going to have this debate. So he's going to put forward some ideas now in this article. But there's no need to pick on Reverend Barber. Is interchangeably with any number of social justice proponents of the religious left. His statements actually pale to what was published in the Jesuit-run America magazine a few weeks ago, a stunning piece titled "The Catholic Case for Communism," the column which was written by an American staff writer named Dean Detloff, came with a defense and explanation by American editor-in-chief Friar Matt Malone, S.J., called Why We Publish an Essay Sympathetic to Communism. The spectacle prompted one reader to comment, "What will America publish next?" America meaning the magazine. The Catholic case for atheism or the Catholic case for Satanism. That's not a laughing matter. The Roman Catholic Church in 1937 encyclical Divini Redemptoris referred to communism as a satanic scourge, a truly diabolical instrument of the sons of darkness. Can you imagine a publication in 2019 defending such an ideology? What did communism produce in the interim between 1937 and 2009? Only 100 million corpse or so. But back to this democratic socialist infatuation by many of the modern religious left. I dealt with this not long ago in a recent piece laying out at length the Catholic Church has taught about socialism and even its alleged more democratic variants. Here too, this article could run thousands of words with endless examples, including some from the very founders of socialism, Marxism, and Marxism-Leninism, and past democratic socialists and social democrat refuting this stuff. Socialism is, in Marxism theory, the final transitionary step to communism. Here today, I'll offer merely a snapshot from Vladimir Lenin himself, who, for the record, was a social democrat. Yes, you heard it right. The Communist Party, the Soviet Union, began life in 1898 as the Russian Socialist Democratic Party, Labor Party. In 1903, at the party's second Congress, Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin split their Bolshevik faction from their rival Menshevik. The Bolshevik were self-professed socialist, democratic. And what did Lenin say about religion? He says religion is the opium for the people. Wrote Lenin in December 1905, echoing his hero Karl Marx, religion is a sort of spiritual booze. That was a mild assessment from a man who wrote that there is nothing more abominable than religion, and all worship of divinity is a necrophilia. Yes, necrophilia, meaning having a sexual relationship with a corpse. Sticking to the 1905 statement, Lenin saw socialism as incompatible religious belief. Everyone must be absolutely free to be an atheist, which every socialist is, and as a rule, he declares complete separation of church and state is what the socialist proletariat demands as of modern state and modern church. Sounding like a 21st century secular progressive in America, Lenin insists that religion must be declared a private matter. So I'll pause there. I didn't want to pause too much. I want to give you the whole article, but since it's a kind of a long article, I just decided to pepper it with a few comments. So notice he says here that at first Lenin starts out with this idea here that there should be a complete separation of church and state is what the socialist proletariat demand of modern states in modern church. So he's saying that this sounds like a 21st century secular progressive America, which is kind of, it's not weird, but it's, to me, it's not being, this is the type of stuff that I said these theologians can be so not honest about. If you read the Constitution, it's obvious that, and you look at the history of America, that the founding fathers in America were dealing with some of the same issues. Many of the issues, which I'll read towards the end, came out of the French Revolution, the arresting of the Pope receiving a deadly wound, and part of that deadly wound was not just the arrest of the Pope, but the idea that they took away civil power, and also that they brought in a new system that France was pushing, and various different groups of people across the world experimented with it from 1700s, late 1700s into the 1800s and coming into the 1900s. This idea here that there should be a separation of church and state because of The problem when the two get together, how they abuse the people. So this is not something. This was something done in France. You know, when we talk about the what do you call it now, the deadly wound that was given to the Pope when he was arrested. It was not just the Pope that got hit hard. They basically chopped the head off of thousands of or hundreds to thousands of priests and nuns. So the church got a basically a head chopped off wound because they instead of being a voice to balance or to help the people, they were a party to the aristocrats that were abusing the people, and they were part of the aristocracy. And you think about what is synonymous with, American Christianity. It is pastors who are multimillionaire. They're prosperity gospel preachers. They're part of the aristocracy. They're part of the money system to keep the poor. Think about it. The areas in America that has the most religious hardened followers are the poorest, sickest, areas in the country. So you can see how someone looking at it and say, it is like a opium. It is like a booze or a vodka to the masses, because the masses go to religion and they tell them about prosperity and keep them poor. So it is ironic that the things, interesting enough, you're going to hear are all things that the founding fathers in America saw, that the leaders would abuse the people and the priests would endorse the abuse and endorse the leaders and tell the people it's all okay. It's all in God's blessing. God wants you to the poor and suffer. So you see this here. So notice he says, Lenin basically says religion must be declared a private affair. That means it's none of your business. It's none of my business. Not supposed to get involved with the state. This is where they want to change. So you can hear the mindset rolling. Notice here, I continue reading. Of course, once Lenin and his Bolsheviks took over a decade later, they refused to tolerate religion even as a private affair. In fact, even in the 1905 letter, Lenin conceded as much. We, quote, this is a quote here now, we demand that religion be held a private affair so far as the state is concerned, but by no means can we consider religion a private affair so far as a party is concerned. In his Soviet state, the party was the supreme infallible authority, and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union would relentlessly pursue a Mikhail Gorbachev called a wholesale war on religion. Lenin continued, stating that in order to combat religious, I paused there again. You think about it, if you are, like just what happened in the Bible, the Bible records so beautifully. If you took away Lenin, Gorbachev, President Ronald Reagan, all these names, and you just put back in the Bible stories where there's, Jeremiah and Isaiah and this king and that king, you take in any of the kings, all the kings were relentless against religion, but not mainline religion, not the religion that endorsed them, but the religion that was against their tyranny. And so when you think about that, it is never, Nero did what some of the Jewish king did to religion. Remember, by the time Ahab and Jezebel took power, everybody that was righteous and was not a devil worshiper was on the ground in caves being killed, hunted. They had the death penalty on them. So this is part of the problem, but there were people who were religious. They were doing spiritual worship. They were doing ceremonies, but it was a ceremonies to worship the devil. But yet Ahab and Jezebel was for them. So they were for religion. They weren't for, in other words, religion that teach righteousness and morality. They were just for religion that is religion in practice, but really devil worshiping in practice. And if you read as again Revelation 18, you'll see that where we're going is that religion that calls itself Christianity and so forth will go straight into paganism. And it's already going on there, because in so many churches, spiritual formation is being practiced, which is devil worship light. in the Baptist, the Methodist, the Adventist church. All these churches have practicing open practice of spiritual formation, which is, to me, if you really study it, you find out it's just devil worship light. This is where the church is going. So if you preach morality, the difference is morality and justice, you will be ostracized because you'll be viewed as against evil. Basically, they won't say it like that. They'll just say probably against the state or something like that. So to just say religion is something that, was not accepted by them. No evil empire ever accept true religion, because the justice is going to be preached by anybody who accept true religion or preach true religion, and that will make them become a target of any evil empire. Notice here, Lenin continued to state that in order to combat the religious fog, we founded our association, the Russian Socialist Social Democratic Labor Party, precisely for such a struggle against every religious bamboozling of the workers. Lenin wanted a political system cleansed of medieval mildew. He wanted to halt religious humbugging of mankind. As I say, you think about it. If you're having freedom and you're having certain benefits because there's a wound upon the system called the church, you can see how easily somebody like a Lenin or somebody like a Hugo Chavez or many of these other rulers, including people like a George Washington and various people in America, who say, you know what, we need to have a separation of church and state. You can see how they came to this. So this is to say it was only Lenin toying with this stuff, or only Stalin toying with this stuff, or anybody else. Everybody 200 years ago or so was looking at this thing and saying, man, you need to have the church over there and we over here, because the church will stop us from building roads. The church will stop us from doing all these things that are just practical things for the people that are needed, because they start to come up with their ideology and philosophy. They're often bad for business. Because you're reading here, our example from Lenin, I could go on and on. These are tame examples taken from a decade prior to when Lenin came to power and began murdering by the thousands. This is the restrained Lenin. Still, one can see the absolute repudiation of religion vis-a-vis communism, socialism, democratic socialism. 4 years later, May 1909, Lenin repeated, "Religion is an opium for the of the people." This dictum by Marx is the cornerstone of the whole Marxist outlook on religion. Here, Lenin was writing explicitly on behalf of fellow social democrats. What he wrote is worth quoting at length, given what our Christian Democrat Socialist brethren now assert. Now, I'll pause there again, because remember, when you think about this, as my topic is this divide between liberal, conservative, capitalist, socialist, it's important for you all to always have to think about that. This divide always been, Cain and Abel, so forth and so on. It is a divide that we deal with, and it's something that, as we look at, we have to approach it in neutrality. And I know somebody said it's impossible. How would we're from the West, they're over there in the East. We can't approach it with neutrality. You just have to. You got to look at it from a historical point of view, that all these things came out of the French Revolution. Because the French Revolution, they were having a struggle with this idea here of kings and the aristocracy and the priesthood. And a lot of ideas came out, including democracy, of government by the people, from the people, by the people. It is the absolute duty of socialist Democrats to make public statements of their attitude towards religion. Social Democrats base its whole world outlook on scientific socialism, i.e. Marxism, the philosophy basis of Marxism, as Marx and Engels repeatedly declare in their dialectic materialism, materialism, which is absolutely atheistic and positively hostile to all religion. Marxism has always regarded all modern religion and churches and each and every religious organization as instrument of the Borges, I'm saying this French word wrong, reaction that serves to defend the exploitation and befuddle the working class. So this is a major thing. And as I say, I wanted to talk about this at the end, but I just decided that probably it's best for me to talk about it now. Now the Borges, the Bourgeois. I know it's like Borgos or Borges, or I've heard it so many times I can't remember how to pronounce it. But it is this. This is characteristic of the middle class, typically reference to perceived materialistic view or conventional attitude. So notice here, it is saying that Marxists always regard modern religion and churches and each and every religious organization an instrument of the Borges reaction that served to defend exploitation and to befuddle the working class. So if you remember what I was saying here, and I've been saying here, is that if you look back at the French Revolution, one will realize real quickly that it was a rebellion of the working class people, the poor people, against the excesses that was being put on by the ruling class, and the lack of care for their any grievances they have. Remember, part of the American Constitution is it says that basically, if you have a grievance, you have a right to take it to the government, and they must hear you. Redress of grievances. This is how they say it. Continue reading the article. It says Marxism is materialism. How do you think about that? I'll read it again. Marxism is materialism. As such, it is as relentlessly hostile to religion. We must combat religion. That is the ABC of all materialism and consequently of Marxism. But Marxism is not a materialism which has stopped at ABC. Marxism goes further. It says we must know how to combat religion. End of quote. So this is from the article. So think about it. If you go to somebody in Russia, what do they call Americans? I want you to think about that. Because I'm going to read it again to you. Here the article writer says Marxism is materialism. This is why you have to be neutral on this type of stuff. Because you somebody over here said Marxism is materialism. And then if you listen to them, I always remember, I didn't learn this from any school. I just remember watching a movie and they would say capitalist pigs. This is what they normally say, capitalist pigs. And it's all about money and capitalism and materialism. So the West is very material, they'll say. They don't care about human being, they care about material possession. And so you can see the weirdness of, like, as I say, if you're independent of all this and you read this, you're like, wait a minute, I thought the West was materialistic. And so you would say capitalism is materialism. So I'm going to read the article here, but I'm going to flip it. Notice here, capitalism is materialism. As such, it is relentlessly hostile to religion. We must combat religion. That is the ABC of capitalism, and consequently, the West concept or idea. But Marxism is not a materialism which is stop at the ABC. Marxism go further. It says we must know how to combat religion. Capitalism could be the same thing. Think about it. Christ says, sell all you have and give to the poor, and then come and follow me. That's what Christ says to the rich young ruler. That would be anti-capitalism. That would be anti-Marxism. Later on, when the disciples received the Holy Spirit, anyone that was poor among them, they sold all that they had and they gave it to the poor, and they have all things in common. That could sound like communism or socialism, but that was the gospel being lived out, similar to what Christ asked the young ruler: sell all that you got and give it to the poor. Take care of the poor. So that is anti-Marxism and anti-capitalism. It is very much that the human being comfort and sustenance comes more or come before what my material possessions are. So Marxism is materialism. But if you go to the Marxists, they'll say, well, capitalism is materialism. It's like they're throwing mud at each other. This is why you say this is Babylon and this is from the bottomless pit. This is all confusion right here. Notice here we continue. This combat must be waged in order to reverse the religion hold on the backward section of the town proletariat, which I think is the poor people. That is the town's idiots. So they're basically saying, the Marxists are saying that they gotta go against religion to basically stop the hold that religion have on the town's idiots. So they're saying people who follow religion is backward. Well, here's the irony. I can tell you online, just go online anywhere now and you go look at people who are Western or in America, especially young men, and they'll tell you that if you believe in God, you're an idiot. So they say you're an idiot because you don't evolve, and I guess they're atheistic in their outlook. So this concept here is not it's something that people hold when I guess as human beings we kind of hold that type of view. If you don't accept my point of view, you must be an idiot. And you can quickly realize that there's some really bright people on both sides that are either very wise or very idiotic. Notice here, this did not help Marxism. Russia, although they've been good to build weapons, think about what Russia export mostly. Russia export mostly weaponry like AK-47, bombs, a lot of military hardware, and vodka. This is what it is. So it didn't make communism, although they're trying to point to socialism, but communism did not an anti-religious sentiment and having a state church, which is the Eastern Orthodox Church, did not make Russia better for it. It actually made them darker and more sinister and more violent for it. And more materialism became their god. And yet they didn't have a lot of material possession because over in the West, there's more material possession available, options. So very tricky. They don't produce much. I mean, a lot of things to kill people, but that's the whole problem. The philosophy darkened the society. Just a thought. Continue reading. The question is often brought up. So this is why you have to, as I say, you have to be independent, because there's this liberal, conservative, capitalist, socialist, whatever, and you could take sides, and then you realize, wait a minute, but if wrong is wrong either way. So if one is wrong in this concept or wrong in that concept, you got to be able to look at it. Because as I say, when you look at what was the end product of communism, it didn't end well. But when we talk about socialism, people tend to forget that Britain is a socialist country. Quite a few of the Western European empires are socialists in their governmental structure. So what's that all about? That's a whole nother discussion. Continue reading. The question is often brought up whether a priest can be a member of the Socialist Democratic Party or not. This question is usually answered in an unqualified affirmative. The experience of the European Socialist Democratic Party. Oh, so here I'm reading Lenin. So this is Lenin himself reflect on the absurdity of the thought of a Socialist Democrat Party and people being religious, being part of that party. So continue reading. Socialist Democrat Party being cited as evidence, but this experience was a result not only of the application of Marxism doctrine to the workers' movement, but also of the special historic condition of Western Europe, which are absent in Russia. So that an unqualified affirmative answer in this case is incorrect. It cannot be asserted once and for all that priests cannot be members of the Socialist Democratic Party, but neither can the reverse rule be laid down. If a priest comes to us to take part in our common political work and conscientiously perform party duties without opposing the program of the party, he may be allowed to join the ranks of the Socialist Democrat for the contradiction between the spirit and the principles of our program and the religious conviction of the priest would, in such circumstances, be something that concern him alone, his own private contradiction. But of course, such a case might be a rare exception even in Western Europe, while Russia is altogether improbable. And if, for example, a priest joined the Social Democratic Party and made it his chief and almost sole work actively to propagate religious views in the party, it would unquestionably have expelled him from its rank. To a certain degree, one would have to, you're hearing it for the first time, so just because, you have to think about this, right? Probably read it 2-3 times and think about what Lenin is saying and why why is the order placed in this quotation here. Now, why I think this has to be thought through, this idea of a priest. The problem is, as I say, you read the Bible, it's very clear that Christ was not part of the conservatives. Christ was not part of the liberals. And that in itself begs, a question, and I'll give an answer. And Christ was not part of the Roman system. Christ himself is the one that stated very clearly that, pay Caesar what is Caesar and give to religion what is religion. The two don't need to go hand in hand, because the programs and the concepts that are put forward by the state, it is important for the state to do those things and to leave those things alone. The church has its work. So for the priest to give up his work and to stop what he's doing over here, to go work within the party lines, to move things in such a way, it is unnecessary. As a matter of fact, what's always weird with all this is that often the people who are part of the party, they go to church. And instead of the priest doing his job to try to teach Bible religion, and might there be influence the mindset of the people that are in the state, is there trying to work within the state system to try to bring about a change that can only happen with the gospel. So that's where the problem is, because it's the gospel that makes the true change in the life. And if that gospel is not working in the life of the person is going to still have a secular, selfish worldview, and they're going to approach everything, even government, in that way. So it's important for us, as to say, not to be part of that system, just to understand that this is religion. We have a work to do. We have a work to help those who need to be helped, to teach those who need to be taught. This is state. State primary function is to build bridges, to do security, to do health, to do all this type of stuff. That stuff there can be done with or without philosophy, but it still needs to be done. Like somebody could say, I don't believe in socialism. And I'm going to get back to the article, but anyhow, I don't believe in socialism, somebody will say. And yet, sooner or later, they're going to get sick. And the question is going to be how to deal with that sickness in a reasonable way. So whether or not you're Democrat or you're Republican, whether or not you're liberal or conservative, capitalist or socialist, there's certain human need that trump everything that we have ideologically. You still have to figure out how to deal with the children, how to deal with the sick, how to deal with the aged. You have to figure out how to have better security. Still need to be able to provide roads and bridges and so forth. The education of the children has to be dealt with. All these things have to be dealt with, and might be the methodology might be kind of different, but the needs are still there. The kids still need to be educated. Now, we might have a disagreement that should the kids be taught evolution or should they be taught creation, but we agree that the kids need to be taught math and English. You might disagree. I might say there should be no evolution in the curriculum, but the kids need to be taught the laws of physics and chemistry and biology, the way our planets work, the way our Earth work. These are things that we can agree on. And whether, as I said, whether you're liberal or conservative, math is still going to be math. Science is still going to be science. Science will always be science, independent or irrelevant of either creation or evolution. And those are the things that still need be. So, in all this debate and back and forth going on, This is why it's important. Like when you read an article like this and they start to pull up like Lenin and they say, hey, look, all these people die. But you pull back and you say, well, yeah, if you're black and you're over here, it was mass murder going on just the same way. And it was the true Christians, as I say, the various different people who were fighting for the freedom of the slaves who was independent religiously of the system. And they were like, look, we're religion and we over here, we're preaching freedom. That's it. We're preaching justice. We're preaching morality. And we're not going to be part of your system because we're not going to quiet our voice to try to figure out how to build a bridge. I think you can figure that out without our help. You need police on the streets. Whether you're liberal or conservative, you need police on the streets. That's just it. What I have to do with left or right is just security needs to be enforced. And you need to investigate across the board, everyone, and do it through justice. That had nothing to do with party lines or whether you're liberal or conservative. But we get into these things that will make it sound like it is. And then we get into moral debate that should be really going on in church and be left for for the party line. I'll take a few more from the article because I want to read some more of his quotes as he quotes Lenin, because this is his idea why anything to do with socialism is wrong. But yet you can't have a system without socialism. It's just a matter of how much. But every country has a level of socialism. What's socialism? It's basically pooling everybody's resources to get a common good. So every country has socialism. America has socialism in it. So what are we talking about? Every country has materialism because we are materialistic. We burn resources. All of us are materialistic. I'm supposed to give up the world and follow Jesus. I agree. But we all need clothing. We all need shoes. We're not born with hoofs. At least I wasn't. So I need a shoe. So after there's a certain level of materialism that I need and you need. All of us need it. Jesus needed it. Jesus was born as a man. He had a robe. He had sandals. The latchet of his shoes. John the Baptist wouldn't even be worthy to tie. He had his shoes. He has to eat. We are material. It's just a matter of how much, what is reasonable. That's really the question. So somebody can say, I don't believe in socialism. You're crazy. Everybody has to have a level of socialism. We all have car insurance. We all have health insurance. We all have some socialistic programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all these things. So it's not the question of is it needed. The question is how much is too much. So if you go to someone like Lenin, he says, full speed ahead. You go to Cuba, full speed ahead. But you have to have materialism. So you say, how much materialism? Well, you go probably to Cuba and they limit it. But you're limiting your options. So again, everywhere need materialism. Everywhere need socialism. The right of people to be heard from the government. Everybody needs to have their voice be heard. But you go to probably a communist country, they'll be like, no, you shouldn't have your voice be heard. Well, that's going to lead to war. That's dumb. So that's why you have to be neutral. Because if you don't have the right to hear a voice and somebody say, I can't be heard, so I'm going to take up a gun. And then that's where you have wars. So every of these system needs a looking into because these are natural needs. These are not communist or democratic. And this is where people like this order is off because they're trying to make it sound like some of these principles that came out of the French Revolution, that was basically a bunch of madness, is not something that the people were demanding it, the proletariat. So let's take this a little bit more and then see if I can sum up. Because as I say, liberal, conservative, capitalist, socialist, you go to work, right? And you work, and it's always capitalistic. It's you go to work, you're not gonna get paid just what you work for, as you'll starve. You're gonna put in $100 and you expect to make 200 so that you can get your profit. That's everything is capitalistic. All of us are liberal and all of us are conservative. Everybody have a principle they live by. There's a rapist out there that says he won't rape certain things. He has some type of principle. And he might see, go to prison, and if somebody's a rapist, they see the rapist as being target for abuse, but they're in prison because they deserve to be in prison. But they say, oh yeah, but I'm not a rapist. I'm better than that person. Everybody has some type of liberal, conservative, capitalistic, socialistic idea. Come on now. You bring me somebody that's purely none of this. Everybody has it. These are natural things to all of us. Think about this, because I'm out of time and I'm trying to figure out how to wrap this up. And I'm going to go back to the article. Liberals will say, go to Christ and say Christ was a liberal. Conservative will go to Christ and say Christ was a conservative. What does that tell you? There's something there that you can see either or. And that's just the reality. Notice here, he continue. Notice he says, if a left-wing priest was foolish enough to join the party, Lenin and the boys would accept his help. Lenin is infamous for allegedly referring to such people as useful idiots. But if the strange priest ever tried to share his fate with the fellows, well, he would be shown the door and the boot. Lenin knew better, so too did Marx. Communism begins where atheism begins, he says. Well, that would be the French Revolution. Once the Bolsheviks took over Russia, atheists was required of the party officials. You think about it, in America, they say there should be no religious tests. So these are similar concepts. There should be no religious tests. So you're taking a job as a mayor, and they're saying, we're not going to put a test on you if you're religious. That means that we're basically saying an atheist can take a job, a Muslim, a Baptist, a Methodist, a Catholic, or whoever. We don't care about the religion. You can understand why, because it can be crippling. I'm hiring you to build a bridge, and I need to ask you, what's your stake in abortion? And if you give me the wrong answer, even if you're the best person to build a bridge, I'm going to say you can't build a bridge. Are you going to say why? Oh, because you don't believe, or you believe in abortion. You answer the wrong thing. And you say, but I have the best ability to make the best bridge. And you say, no, we prefer to bring an idiot in who's going to build a bridge that's going to collapse in 20 years and kill a whole bunch of people. But he gave the right answer. See, this is where the problem. But what does your take on abortion has to do with building a bridge? So this is where the problem comes in. So you get the best effect or result, basically, if you have just a person that can do the job. Now, here's a flip side. If you're in Russia and you want to build a bridge, and a guy comes in and he says, I'm the best bridge builder, the Lenin or Stalin are one of those people who say, we don't want your type around us because you believe that there's a God and we want to be godless. Or say you're Jehovah's Witness currently in Russia. They would say, well, no, you can't work for, you could build the best bridges, but not in America, not in Russia. You go to America because you believe in Jehovah. You see, this is the type of stupidity that comes. This is why you can understand after the French Revolution, people started to say, well, let's not have a religious test. So to make it sound like says only the communists is dumb with some of these things doesn't make sense, because again, the question is not so much what your religious belief is can you do the job? We just want somebody to build roads. We want somebody to take care of the sanitary condition in the society. Are you the best guy for the job? Yes. What do you believe in? We don't care. Right? This is where these problems comes in. Now, the question now, if you're being hired to be a pastor, well, that's a different story. So, so 3 more paragraphs and the article is done. And because of the sake of time, I just want to sum this up. And it is important to know that, as I say, these ideas here being put forward, whether, communism, capitalism, liberal, conservative, it depends on the circumstance and the situation at hand. In a house, in your house, in my house, there are times when you have to be a stickler for the law, but there's times when you have to be liberal. It depends on the circumstance. There's times when you have to go after profit, and there's times when you don't have to go after profit. So hence, capitalism depends on the circumstance. Socialism is needed, help for the poor. But there's some situation I don't believe that socialism is needed. And sometimes you have to pay a cost. If you're doing a business, you need to be able to have the freedom to do that business. But probably in a socialistic environment, it's not friendly to business. It is friendly to more non-profit, but there's some things that you have to provide and create at a cost. And that's just the reality. As it's just, what do you do? There's times when people are sick and they don't have the money, and what you're gonna do as a human being, if you go to any priest right now or any preacher who is anti-socialism and say your member is sick and dying of a disease, do you believe that we should help that person socialistically? And that priest would say, no, let them die. I don't believe in socialism. You see, this is the type of dumbness that we have going on, because people must hold to party lines or hold to one belief or the other. But if you free your mind from this type of mental slavery, and you allow yourself to really just look at situations as they come at you, then you don't have to be caught into this type of worldview. It depends on the situation. As I say, it depends. Christ, if you really look at Christ, I don't think Christ is either liberal or socialist. Christ was compassionate, but Christ was the lawgiver. He is the lawgiver. So how do you blend it? When you look at God, God is a liberal person, being, I should say. God is our Heavenly Father that is kind to us. But God is the one that many people, you read the Bible, just wipe out all groups of people. He has justice. He says, you murder, you will be murdered. So Christ, God is a believer in the death penalty. Socialist, if you're liberal, you don't believe in the death penalty, but God does. God himself has executed the death penalty multiple times by masses of people. So how could a person be liberal and believe in God when God is one that execute the death penalty? God, somebody say, I'm anti-abortion. Yeah, but God will wipe out a whole mass of people, with the kids included also. He doesn't spare them. He doesn't spare the baby mother while she's pregnant. It says the whole town die, including the unborn and the born. So somebody say, oh no, I'm anti-abortion, but God has aborted many. These rules and principles, God is socialistic in his views. God is liberal, is capitalism. God says, you have land, you are the right to reap that land and get all the profit from that land. It's your business what you do with it. Think about it, tithe and offering. The tithe is given to you for you to return a faithful tithe. God don't force it out of your hand. God is not socialism or communism, but God yet tell his believers sometimes to sell all you have and go preach the gospel and go bless the poor. So God then is a communist? No, it just depends on the circumstance. And so we don't get locked into these things, because if you locked into a liberal ideology, or you're locked into a conservative ideology, you run into problem, because you're going to be forced at certain times you'll have to get over on the conservative side, and certain times you have to get over on the liberal side. It depends on the circumstance, but you become irrational and dumb if you believe and start being idiocy, part of the idiocy that Lenin and this preacher is talking about. Both sides can blame each other for that type of idiocy, because some things are just irrational. I've asked people, if a hostage is taken captive and the hostage refused to let the person go, is the police have a right to execute the death penalty on the spot? And if you're a liberal, you have a very difficult time to answer that, because you're going to realize police have no choice. So there are times that the police need to execute. But if you're conservative and you say, hey, you believe that the police should be shooting unarmed black men in the street who are not posing a risk to their lives, a conservative would have a hard time answering that, because for them they'd be like, if he's unarmed and he's black, he should be shot. So it's these ridiculous point of views that don't make no sense. You free your mind from this type of mental slavery. Just be free, and you take the situation at hand and just answer based upon what's reasonable. And you'll find that you don't have to be liberal or conservative. You don't have to be capitalist or socialist or communist. You just follow the Bible. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of your word and the blessings, dear Lord, of knowing thee. Pray, Lord, that we might truly free our mind and allow your words, your thoughts, your teachings to be part of us, and that we may be a blessing to our fellow human beings, that we may always be just, and we may always be fair to all men. This is my prayer in Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Form Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow morning, where we should talk about natural health. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.